Okay guys, this is my third time recording this video. I just can't seem to get it to be cohesive, but I'm going to try one more time. So, the LC scene, I'm just going to get straight into it. I already pointed out that the L is the 12th lunar month, and when you flip it upside down, you get an A scratched into the ground, which is the representation of the number 1. So 1 and 7, 17, 12 and 17. Look on the calendar, we can see the 12th, beginning of the 12th lunar month is on the 17th of January. So that's one. Then I went on to say that the C would represent the letter 3, the number 3, and that the apple, which is A, would be number 1, so 3 and 1. And then down here we've got 15. When we look at the calendar, we've got 3 and 1, or 31st of January, which is the 15th lunar day in the 12th lunar month. So that's all covered. What I believe that interpretation is in reference to would be this particular scene here, where we have Osama bin Laden on the, excuse me, go back a little bit, on the, what I believe is the USS Carl Vinson. This is the same aircraft carrier they used to bury him at sea, and we seem to have the letter J highlighted in light just here, and I believe that stands for January. And then when we go a little bit further into the scene, if that is January, it would make sense because we have what appears to be a lunar eclipse in progress, as well as the number 31 in the clouds over here. And we have a lunar eclipse occurring on the 31st of January, so that seems to all tie in together. The crescent moon also represents Islam, as we all know. So what I'm getting from this is something coming towards maybe the end of January, something to do with Islam, something to do with Iran and Israel. That could be the time where the mosque gets bombed. I'm not exactly too sure on that, but I'm quite certain that's something to do with Iran or even Pakistan, because that's where Osama bin Laden's from. Something to do with Islam, let's just say that. It's going to be happening in January, at least by January 31st, the last day of January. So that's one side. The next side I wanted to have a look at refers back to the LC scene, and this part gets a little bit complicated, so bear with me. We're still looking at the 12th lunar month, and obviously you can see that the light is no longer over the L, which is the 12th lunar month, and I think that is represented by, if it is obviously the 17th of January that we're talking about here, and it appears to be dark, then that appears to be represented on the astronomy calendar, where we have a new moon on January the 17th, which is obviously meaning new moon is no light, basically. It's dark. And that appears to be what we're seeing in this particular scene here. But not only that, what I find clever about it is the fact that it could represent two different dates. So while we have the A scratched into the ground down here representing number 1 and joining them together makes 17 on the 12th lunar month when there's a new moon, no light, it could also represent the beginning, or sorry, the end of the 12th lunar month. So not only does it represent the beginning, but it also represents the end. Because on the astronomy calendar, when we look at the end of the 12th lunar month, rather than the beginning, which is on the 17th of January, the end of the 12th lunar month comes up on February the 15th, which is also a new moon, meaning no light. So it looks like it's depicting both the 17th of January for the beginning of the 12th lunar month and the 15th of February for the end of the 12th lunar month. When I look at this scene here, I can see there's a C, which is representing the number 3, and I can see there's a 15 down here, which is obviously representing number 15. Sorry, I meant to say there's an X and a 5 tally marks representing number 15. So we've got 3 and 15. When we look at the calendar again, we can see that in February, on the last lunar day of the 12th lunar month, there's a 3 and a 15. 0 has no value, so take that away. We're left with 15 and 3. And that appears to be what is depicted here also. So the last day of the 12th lunar month, 15-3. Then we're shown 21 in the seed, so 2 and 1. And then we're shown 22 in the beads, on the sweat bead on Obama's forehead. Excuse me, trying to get it right on there. Yep, the V shown there on the sweat bead of Obama's forehead. And then when we come outside the classroom, as we all know, we're shown the 23 on the wall. And if that is in line with this particular interpretation, then it appears that the calendar points us to the 15th of February, the 30th lunar day in the 12th lunar month, or the last lunar day in the 12th lunar month. We then have 1, 2, 3. Now, if you take February, which is the second month in the Gregorian calendar, that's 2, and you add it to the first lunar day in the first lunar month, which is the beginning of the Wuju year of the dog, then you've got 21. Then you've got 22, which is represented by the V on Obama's head, and then you've got 23, which is when we're outside of the classroom and everything appears to be destroyed. Not only that, but it could be that in this scene here, if that is an L and that is a 3 as well as a 23, we've got the fact that it's 23 is represented by February, the second month, and 3, the third lunar day, and it would be L3 as well, so it would be the lunar third, as well as being in the correct year of the dog and the correct year of Wuju, or Wuju year of the dog. So that all points me to February the 18th. Now, when we look at February the 18th, I can see that 18 or 1 and 8 would be 9. And then if you break down the 2 from February, that's 1 and 1, so 9, 11. And then at the same time, a number that's been plaguing me is also fulfilled, which is 3, 11. So you got the 3 on the third lunar day, and again, you break down the 2 from February, and you've got 1 and 1. Excuse me. So, as well as it being 23, you know, the 2 and the 3. So you've got 23, 9, 11, 3, 11, all represented on the 18th of February, which is 3 days after the Wuju year starts, or the lunar third. Added on to that, on the 15th, the last lunar day of the 12th lunar month, it is a number of things, one being a new moon, which I've already mentioned. There's a partial solar eclipse. It is basically the beginning of the Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year starts at 12 o'clock on the 15th, so when it just changed onto the 16th. It's also the day of the sun in North Korea, for, I believe it's Kim Jong-il. I think it was his birthday or something like that. I'm not going to bother going researching that. You can do that yourself if you like. But there appears to be a lot of indications to this particular day, suggesting, in my interpretation anyway, I believe that the event that we're looking at in terms of the tsunami, possible nuclear tsunami, is going to be happening on the 3rd of February, the third lunar day in the year of Wuju, the year of the dog. And that is all my interpretation. 9/11, 23, 3/11. It's in the correct year. It fulfills the 23 and the L3 from the Psalm 23 on the wall. It fulfills this particular scene here as well, where we've got the lunar third. And I really don't know if that's correct, but I feel like it is. So that's why I'm making this video. The other thing I wanted to just quickly add on is, in the classroom scene, where we've got the letters on the wall, we know that A, B, C, and D are missing, so we start our count from E, which makes O the 11th letter in this alphabet. O is the 15th letter ordinarily, and Z basically represents the end. So when I was thinking about O, and it just sprung to my mind, Olympics. The Olympics begins on February the 9th. If you add 11 days to that, as the representation of O is on this chart, the 11th letter, then you have 9/11 represented, as well as 11 days from there being February the 20th. So my basic thoughts are, from now till the end of the month, 31st of January, maybe somewhere in the beginning of the month as well, there's going to be some sort of event relating to Iran and Israel. I think that may encourage North Korea and China possibly to advance. I don't know if that's true, but if it is some sort of nuclear confrontation between Israel and Iran, then North Korea may be emboldened to launch their Juicy bird, which, if correct, in the iPet Goat video, we have the tanks, which appear to be of Chinese origin or North Korean origin, depending on how you see it, advancing, and that appears to be taking place at the same time as what appears to be some sort of celebration or New Year. Sorry, trying to get it right on there. Let's play it 1 second. So annoying. 1 second, please. Okay, let me just play from here. Okay, yeah. So if this represents the Chinese New Year, the tanks themselves, we can see when they're advancing that this line here appears to mark the demarcation zone, the border between South Korea and North Korea, but they haven't crossed it. So they seem to be advancing, but we're not showing them crossing over the demarcation line, which says to me that they haven't started attacking, but they are advancing to the demarcation line. And if that's happening around the Chinese New Year, which is happening 15th, 16th of February, then that could be an indication that there's going to be some form of provocation, possibly just 2 days later, on the third lunar day in the first lunar month, which is 23, 9/11, and 3/11, Wuju Year of the Dog, something nuclear happening with maybe North Korea, maybe with China. Depends. That, I believe, is the day this tsunami comes. By all indications, it's a tsunami destined for the East Coast, particularly New York, Manhattan, that kind of area. I think that's it. That kind of falls into line with everything else that I spoke about in my February to March video, where I pointed out the fact that the stag, buck, deer appears to be in heat, which is February. The mad as a March hare getting freaky in February, March time. The CALLA lily being in season February, March time, as well as the hearts and everything else kind of indicating love and Valentine's Day and Aphrodite and all that kind of stuff. So and it's in winter. So that's pretty much my video. The date I'm looking at for this particular event is February the 18th, the third lunar day in the first lunar month, with the Wuzhu Year of the Dog. You guys, I know you have your own opinions and stuff like that. This is just one interpretation, but you have to agree that having the L go dark, representing a new moon, giving no light, having the L be the 12th letter of the alphabet, which is the representation of the 12th lunar month, having a slightly scratched into the bottom, which represents a 1, joining the 1 and 7 together, making 17, which is the 17th of January. It's all a lot to take in, and I realised that I might try and make another video where it's a bit better, it's laid out a bit better. But I thought this was quite interesting, considering the L kind of represents the beginning of the 12th lunar month and the end of the 12th lunar month, and the new moon, as well as representing the third lunar day in the Wuzhu Year of the Dog. So you guys, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and God bless. Take care.